Welcome to the Thinking Abyss podcast, a philosophical journey through consciousness, reality, and the phenomena that challenge our understanding of existence. From ancient wisdom to cutting-edge theories, we explore where philosophy meets science and curiosity leads to the edge of the unknown.
Look around you. I mean, really think about the scale of what we build. We have these fiber optic networks that span entire oceans. We have supercomputers doing just quadrillions of calculations a second.
All built with meticulous top-down design.
Exactly. Everything is planned. Now, contrast that with something like a single ant. Its brain is smaller than a pinhead. It has no capacity for abstract thought, no real planning.
And yet that single ant is part of a collective that achieves things that are frankly mind-boggling. They're master logisticians, architects.
They solve complex math problems that would genuinely stump our best supercomputers.
It's an incredible contrast. Or, think about a flock of birds. A murmuration of starlings, thousands of them, moving like this single fluid organism.
Yeah, like liquid in the sky.
And they shift direction instantly. There's no leader, no conductor, no signal. What you're seeing in both of those cases is one of the most profound principles in the universe at work.
Where incredible sophistication just emerges.
Emerges entirely from simplicity at the individual level.
So today, we are doing a deep dive into that very principle. We're going to investigate what feels like the ultimate shortcut to perfect organization, swarm intelligence. We've pulled together research that covers, well, everything, from the logistics of an ant trail, the democracy of a honeybee swarm,
all the way to the, believe it or not, the brainless wisdom of a slime mold.
And then how we're using that genius to build the next generation of robotics.
So our mission today is really to define and, demystify this idea of swarm intelligence.
Right.
It's this remarkable paradox, really. It's what happens when you have a large number of simple individuals, and they're often not intelligent on their own at all.
They're just following very basic rules.
Exactly. Basic local rules, responding only to the information that's right there in their immediate vicinity. And yet somehow the group collectively produces these highly adaptive, sophisticated, and a lot of the time mathematically optimal solutions to incredibly complex problems.
And the mechanism that allows that to happen is something scientists call emergence, right?
That's the key. Emergence is the scientific term for when the whole becomes genuinely greater than the sum of its parts. I like to think of it like a crystallization process.
Okay.
A single water molecule is, it's simple, but get enough of them together under the right conditions, and the complex, beautiful pattern of a snowflake just emerges spontaneously.
So it's the moment when simple micro rules,
like don't crash into your neighbor or follow the strongest scent,
give rise to this stunningly complex global macro behavior.
Like 1,000 birds turning at the exact same instant. It is the absolute foundation of every single example we are about to discuss.
So why should you, our listener, care about how a bee colony works or, how fish school? Well, it's because understanding these natural bottom-up algorithms is completely revolutionizing how we design and build things.
It's changing everything. It's impacting how we approach AI, how we build robots, even how we structure human organizations.
So we're going to explore 4 really radical examples from nature. We'll unpack some of the math behind it, and then see how engineers are applying these exact lessons to create systems that are more robust, more flexible, and frankly, more scalable than anything we've ever designed from the top down.
Okay, let's unpack this. I think we have to start with the undisputed masters of natural logistics, the ant colony.
Absolutely.
We mentioned this intelligence paradox. A single ant brain, what is it, about 250,000 neurons?
Yeah, something like that. It's less computing power than you'd find in a cheap smartwatch today.
And yet, a colony of millions of them can manage these incredible architectural feats. They build nests with ventilation shafts, with humidity controls.
And they solve optimization problems that are, as you said, notoriously hard for us.
It just emphasizes that the group intelligence is so much greater than the individual intelligence.
Massively. The individual ant doesn't need reason or long-term memory. It just needs a handful of incredibly simple reactive rules. The genius of the colony isn't in a queen giving orders or some master blueprint. It's something much more subtle.
It's decentralized. It's a concept called stigmergy.
Stigmergy. Okay, that sounds like a word cooked up in a biology lab. Break that down for us.
It's actually a really elegant idea. It just means communication through modifying the environment.
So, not talking to each other, but leaving notes in the world.
Exactly. Think about the pheromone trails. When an ant finds a food source, on its journey back to the nest, it deposits a chemical messenger on the ground, a pheromone.
It's chemical evidence.
It's evidence of a successful path. Other ants don't get an order. They just, they detect this chemical signature, and they are naturally more likely to follow the path where the smell is strongest.
And if they find food, they come back and strengthen the signal.
Right. They reinforce it with their own pheromones. If they don't find anything, they go back empty-handed and they lay no new trail.
I think the most elegant part of this, the part that really makes it an algorithm, isn't just laying the trail. It's the fact that the trail decays.
Yes, that is the computational engine. Pheromones are volatile chemicals. They evaporate over time. So you have this continuous time-based degradation function built right into the communication system.
So let's picture it. There are two paths to a food source.
Yeah.
Path A is short and direct. Path B is long and winding.
The ants on the short path, path A, they complete their round trip much faster.
Of course.
So they return and reinforce that trail much more frequently before the pheromones have a chance to disappear. The long path, path B, gets reinforced less often.
And his trail literally just fades away.
It fades into nothing. They are, in effect, continuously running a calculation based on speed, distance, and chemical decay.
It's incredible.
The collective action of thousands of these simple ants, all just following the rule, follow the strong scent, lay a scent if you're successful, naturally and dynamically converges on the shortest, most efficient path possible.
So the colony as a whole solves the traveling salesman problem.
Without a doubt. It finds the optimal route between multiple points without any map, any central calculator, or any conscious thought. It's an engineering marvel built on biochemistry.
Okay, but what happens when that perfect optimal path gets congested? We all know what happens in human traffic. It locks up.
Yeah.
How does the ant system handle that kind of load balancing?
That's where the robustness of the swarm really shines. If that pheromone trail to a great food source becomes extremely crowded.
Right, bumper-to-bumper traffic.
Exactly. Yeah. So dense that movement slows down. That density itself acts as a negative feedback signal.
Huh.
The overcrowding causes some individual ants to get, confused or discouraged.
They get frustrated and just try something else.
Precisely. They start to diverge randomly, exploring other unscented directions. And if one of those random explorers happens to discover an equally good but currently empty secondary food source,
a new trail starts to form there.
Instantly. The system performs dynamic load balancing automatically. The workforce gets distributed not by a command from a manager, but as a spontaneous reaction to local congestion.
So the system never crashes from a bottleneck. It just spins up a parallel process.
It's inherently resilient.
And this complexity goes beyond just logistics. We see specialization, too. I'm thinking of the leafcutter ants.
Oh, they're a fantastic case study. The colony has these highly differentiated worker castes, all sorted by size and by task.
But you have the big ones.
The massive soldiers, their job is just defense. Then you have medium-sized cutters who shear the leaf fragments. Then tiny tenders who cultivate the fungus gardens with those leaves.
And there's the even smaller one, right?
Unbelievably, yes. These minute, nenitic ants that ride on the leaf fragments just to protect the carriers from parasitic flies laying eggs on them.
And this whole intricate division of labor wasn't planned.
Not at all. It emerged from simple genetic rules that dictate growth and behavior based on pheromone cues and what nutrition they got as larvae.
So the collective itself becomes a kind of distributed brain, holding knowledge that far outlives any individual ant.
It really does. An individual ant might only live for a few weeks or months, but the superorganism, the colony, can persist for decades.
And the critical knowledge, where the best food is, the territory boundaries.
It's not stored in any single ant's brain. It's encoded and maintained in the physical patterns of the trail networks and the architecture of the nest itself. The system is its own memory. So if the ant colony is a masterclass in logistics, then the honeybee colony, it's a remarkable example of democratic decision-making under extreme pressure.
Yeah, we're shifting from resource optimization to something more like high-stakes collective politics.
Where the very survival of the colony is on the line.
And this moment you're talking about is the swarming process. Mm-hmm. When a hive gets too crowded, a part of it has to split off and find a new home.
And that new home, that new cavity, has to meet some very strict requirements. It needs to be dry, defensible, the right size.
And a manageable flying distance. Choosing the wrong spot means certain death for thousands of bees.
And the core insight here, and this is so important to stress, is that the queen is completely passive in this whole process.
She's just an egg-laying machine.
The reproductive core, the massive life-or-death decision of where to move, is made entirely democratically by hundreds of scout bees.
So how does this bee democracy work without a ballot box or debate hall?
It all starts with the scout bees flying out, sometimes covering several square kilometers, looking for potential new hive sites.
Right.
When a scout finds a location she thinks is promising, she flies back to the swarm cluster and she starts to perform the famous waggle dance.
The figure-8 dance.
It's an incredibly sophisticated piece of communication.
Right.
It encodes the precise direction of the site relative to the sun, and the distance is encoded in how long the waggle part of the dance lasts.
But it's not just, objective reporting of data. It's also persuasion. It's lobbying. That's what makes it feel political.
Absolutely. The dance is both a vote and an advertisement. The quality of the site determines the scouts' enthusiasm.
So a better site means a more vigorous dance.
A longer, more energetic dance. It conveys confidence. Now, other undecided scouts, they observe this dance. They read the information. And then they fly out to inspect that advertised site for themselves.
They check each other's work.
They check each other's homework. And if they are impressed by the quality of that location, they come back and start dancing vigorously for that same site.
This is the part I find so incredible. They are literally incorporating debate and evidence weighing into their decision.
They really are. You might have different scouts dancing for different locations at the same time. You get this dynamic period of competition.
A marketplace of ideas.
Exactly. But as more and more scouts visit the highest quality site, the intensity of dancing for that site grows exponentially. And the dancing for the less good sites, it fades away, just like the ant pheromone.
Until they reach a quorum.
A consensus. A threshold is met when a critical number of scouts are all dancing for the same location. Once that happens, the decision is logged in. The whole swarm lifts off and heads in that one agreed-upon direction.
And the research has shown that this collective decision, by pooling all this distributed evidence, is often better and less biased than a decision any single human expert might make in a similar situation.
It is the absolute definition of the wisdom of crowds effect, realized in nature.
And this collective intelligence, it isn't just for real estate, it's in their architecture too. The honeycomb.
A testament to emergent efficiency.
It's a marvel. Why hexagons? Why specifically that shape?
Because each bee is just following incredibly simple local building rules. Maintain a precise distance from your neighbors and build a little tube. No single bee has the blueprint for the whole structure.
Right.
And yet the result is the most mathematically efficient structure possible. Hexagons tile a flat plane perfectly. They use the absolute minimum amount of wax for the maximum amount of storage.
And they're incredibly strong.
Optimal structural strength for holding all that heavy honey. It's the perfect design, emerging purely from simple, local, consistent rules. No central planner needed.
Let's talk about a function that is absolutely critical for survival. Temperature control. The brood area, where the larvae are, has to be kept at a constant 35 degrees Celsius.
A very precise temperature.
So how does this huge, decentralized group achieve such precise global control?
Through a beautifully balanced system of distributed local response. It's like a decentralized climate control program.
Okay.
When the hive temperature drops in a certain area, the bees in that spot cluster together and they shiver their flight muscles to generate heat.
And if it gets too hot?
They do the opposite. They'll collect water, spread it on the comb for evaporative cooling, and they'll fan their wings to move air. But the key point is that no single bee is the thermostat for the whole hive.
Each bee is only responding to the temperature right where it is.
Exactly, reacting only to local conditions.
So the collective result of thousands of these little too hot or too cold responses is perfect global temperature stability.
And if they had a central thermostat, that would be a single point of failure. This way, the collective self-regulates. It's always faster and more robust than any single regulator could ever be.
All right, so we've moved from the sophisticated engineering of ants and bees to what feels more like visual poetry.
Mm-hmm.
The motion of fish schools and bird flocks.
Mm-hmm.
Watching a murmuration of starlings, it's just hypnotic. It really does look like a single unified being flowing across the sky. But we know there's no leader. There's no air traffic controller.
And no single bird can possibly see all of its thousands of neighbors.
Right.
For decades, scientists were convinced there had to be some kind of external field or some long-range telepathic influence guiding them. It seemed impossible otherwise.
And the insight that unlocked it all came from a computer scientist.
Craig Reynolds back in the 1980s with his Boyd's simulation.
And that simulation gave us the 3 fundamental rules that govern this motion.
Yeah.
And they have become the blueprint for, half the AI and robotic swarms we use today.
And the beauty of them is their incredible simplicity. The individual bird or fish doesn't need to track the whole group.
It only pays attention to its immediate neighbors.
Just its 5 to 10 nearest neighbors. It's a hyperlocal interaction model.
So let's break them down. Rule 1. Separation.
That's the don't crash into each other rule. Pure collision avoidance. If a bird senses it's getting too close to its neighbors, it instantly steers away to maintain a minimum safe distance.
Prevents the whole thing from becoming a traffic jam.
Keeps the density from becoming a problem. Then you have rule 2, alignment.
This is the cooperative one.
This is the one that says, try to match your speed and direction to the average heading of your immediate neighbors. It keeps the group's internal direction coherent.
And finally, rule 3, cohesion.
This is the stay with the group rule. It's the counterbalance to separation. The individual is always trying to move toward the calculated average center position of its neighbors.
Which keeps the flock from just scattering into the wind.
You apply those 3 simple, local, non-hierarchical rules to thousands of individuals, and all of that complex, beautiful, dynamic pattern we see just emerges spontaneously.
And the functional advantages of this emergent movement are huge, especially for survival. The flock is basically a giant living shield.
It creates the classic confusion effect. For a predator, like a falcon attacking starlings, it's just overwhelmed by the sheer, unpredictable number of moving targets.
It's too much data to process.
It makes it incredibly hard to single out and lock on to one individual.
And the group can also be proactive in its defense with that sudden collective scattering.
The flash expansion. The flock can just instantaneously explode outwards. It's so jarring and rapid, it often causes the predator to abort its attack entirely.
And beyond defense, there are massive energy benefits.
Absolutely. Birds in a V formation are using aerodynamics. They're drafting on their neighbors, just like cyclists in a peloton. Studies have shown they can reduce their energy use by 20 to 30% just by flying in formation.
The collective is simply more efficient.
It's safer, more efficient, and it has more eyes for spotting food or danger.
But you mentioned something earlier that suggests the coordination is even deeper than just these simple local rules. This idea of scale-free correlation. And that sounds like it challenges the Boyd's model a bit.
It's one of the most fascinating recent findings. While the Boyd's rules are strictly about local interaction.
Your 5 to 10 neighbors.
Right. Researchers found that movements, like a sudden turn, are actually correlated across the entire group, no matter how big it is. The information propagates almost instantaneously.
Wait, hang on. If they're only talking to their 5 neighbors, how does the whole flock of thousands know to turn at the exact same moment?
It suggests that the local rules push the system into a very specific state, a kind of critical organizational configuration that allows for maximum information flow.
So the structure itself becomes a kind of antenna.
That's a great way to put it. The correlation is scale-free, which means the speed of information doesn't slow down as the group gets bigger. Think of a phase transition in physics, like a block of iron suddenly becoming magnetized.
The change happens everywhere at once.
Almost instantly, driven by local interactions. The flock behaves the same way. A turning decision, started by just a few birds seeing a threat, ripples through the group much, much faster than a slow wave of neighbor-to-neighbor communication would predict. It gives the collective a massive survival advantage. All right, now we come to the part of this deep dive that for me most profoundly challenges our classic definitions of intelligence. The brainless organism known as the slime mold, specifically Phaserum polycephalum.
This thing is a biological rebel. It's not a plant, it's not an animal, it's not a fungus. It can live as thousands of individual single-celled amoebas.
Or it can aggregate and fuse into one single massive cell, a yellowish blob called a plasmodium that can cover several square meters.
And the absolute key here, it has no brain, no neurons, and no nervous system whatsoever.
And yet this living goo can solve incredibly complex problems with remarkable efficiency. This is the ultimate example of distributed non-neural computation.
Or the body is the computer.
The structure is the intelligence.
So let's start with the classic experiment that put it on the map. A creature with no brain solving a maze.
Researchers place the plasmodium at the entrance of a maze, and they put its favorite food source, usually oats, at the exit.
Okay.
The slime mold starts by spreading out its tendrils. These are basically internal tubes of cytoplasm down every single corridor of the maze. It explores the entire solution space.
It tries every possible path.
Every single one. But the tubes that go down dead ends, they're not useful, so they are quickly retracted and the resources are reabsorbed. The paths that successfully connect the main body to the food source are reinforced.
And over time, it's left with only the shortest path.
It maintains only the shortest, most efficient route through the maze. It optimizes its own nutrient delivery network dynamically.
Okay, I can accept that it can solve a simple maze. But the application of this same logic to human-scale infrastructure, that's what's genuinely mind-bending.
This is the moment the slime mold goes from being a lab curiosity to an engineering genius. Scientists created a map and they placed food sources at locations corresponding to Tokyo and its 36 surrounding satellite cities.
So the oats represented the cities.
Precisely. And they let the slime mold grow, connecting all the food sources. When they analyzed the resulting network of protoplasmic tubes,
What did they find?
they found it was strikingly similar in terms of path length, cost efficiency, and robustness to the actual Tokyo rail system.
A system that took decades of sophisticated human engineering, complex calculations, and astronomical investment.
But was replicated by a single-celled organism with no cognitive function in a single day.
Wow.
It found a near-optimal solution to a complex network design problem, balancing efficiency with redundancy, faster and cheaper than a team of human experts.
How does it do it? What's the mechanism?
It's a beautifully simple, decentralized feedback loop. It's basically a vascular network. When a tendril finds food, the flow of nutrients in that tube increases dramatically. That increased flow causes the tube balls to widen and thicken. That's a positive feedback loop.
A wider tube means even more flow, which reinforces it more.
Exactly. And conversely, the unused or inefficient tubes, they get less flow, they weaken, and they're just reabsorbed back into the main body.
So it's infrastructure that literally builds itself based purely on resource demand and efficiency metrics. It doesn't need to think about optimization. The optimization is just a physical consequence of it trying to eat efficiently.
And this leads to something even more astonishing, the discovery that slime molds exhibit a form of memory without neurons.
Memory. How?
Researchers exposed a slime mold to cold, dry conditions at regular, predictable intervals, say every 10 minutes. Initially, it would slow its growth in response to the bad conditions.
Which makes sense.
But incredibly, after only a couple of cycles, it began to slow down and prepare in anticipation of the cold period, even when the researchers skipped it. It had learned and was predicting a temporal pattern.
It learned a rhythm. It could anticipate the future based on a pattern, which is something we normally associate with pretty complex brains.
Exactly. But the memory isn't stored in synapses or a neural structure. It's physically encoded in the structure of the organism itself. The pattern of the tubes, their thickness, the chemical gradients. The physical form of the organism is the computation, the memory, and the intelligence.
Okay, these examples from nature are just stunning. The logisticians, the Democrats, the poets of motion, the brainless architects. But now we need to pivot and understand the universal principles that tie them all together. The math of emergence. What makes these systems so powerful?
When you synthesize all the rules governing ants, bees, fish, slime molds, you find that 3 universal pillars always emerge. These are necessary for swarm intelligence to function. If you take any one of them away, the whole thing collapses.
Okay, pillar number 1. Many interacting components.
This is the baseline requirement. You can't have a swarm of one, a single ant, a single neuron. It can't achieve this. You need a large, dense collective where the components can interact frequently.
The numbers provide the raw material.
For distributed processing, for robustness, for redundancy.
The second pillar, and this is the one that's often counterintuitive, simple rules.
This is the great paradox of complexity. Complex individual behavior actually inhibits the emergence of a truly powerful collective.
Right. If every ant had a PhD in logistics, they'd just be arguing over the map.
Instead of following the pheromones, simple, local, reactive rules like the Boyd's rules or the pheromone rule are necessary because they allow the system to scale infinitely and adapt rapidly without getting bogged down.
And the third pillar, the engine that drives it all, feedback.
Absolutely essential. Actions have to influence future actions. Finding food creates positive feedback, more pheromone, a wider tube, a more intense dance. Failure or congestion creates negative feedback. The pheromone fades, traffic diverts.
So the system is constantly learning.
Reinforcing what works, correcting what doesn't, all without a manager evaluating performance.
And when you have those three things perfectly balanced, the system finds this incredibly productive sweet spot, what complexity theorists call the edge of chaos.
A critical concept. Imagine water. At one extreme, it's a completely ordered solid, ice. Nothing changes, adaptation is impossible.
It's static.
At the other extreme, it's chaotic gas, steam. The system just dissolves. The edge of chaos is that critical point right in between, like the transition from liquid to gas.
Okay.
In that state, the system has enough coherence in order to stay functional, but it has enough fluidity and chaos to adapt instantly and creatively to a changing environment. Swarms naturally operate right at this point.
And that dynamic stability also explains their incredible hardiness. This idea of robustness and degeneracy. You have to break down what degeneracy means here.
Degeneracy just means that multiple different internal configurations can still lead to the same successful outcome. Because there's no single point of failure, no central brain, you can lose 10, 20, even 50% of the individuals.
And the system keeps working.
It keeps functioning maybe just a little bit slower. Unlike a traditional human hierarchy, where if the CEO quits or the central server fails, the entire operation can grind to a halt.
The redundancy is built in.
Degeneracy ensures that if path A gets blocked, path B, C, or D can instantly be reinforced, allowing the colony to keep feeding itself. It's why we are now desperately trying to engineer this property into our own technology.
So we've learned the principles. Now let's shift to engineering the swarm. How are human engineers applying this to AI and robotics right now?
The whole philosophy has shifted. Instead of trying to build one single, expensive, complex, failure-prone robot, we're building hundreds of simple, cheap, disposable robots that work together using local rules.
Chasing the benefits of robustness, scalability, and flexibility.
Exactly. And the most successful, large-scale, real-world example is in logistics. Specifically, Amazon's Kiva robots.
Right, the little orange pucks that swarm around their warehouses.
Thousands of them. They navigate, they move these massive shelves of inventory, they avoid collisions. But critically, there isn't one giant computer dictating the micropath of every single robot.
Each one is autonomous.
It's an autonomous agent applying simple local rules, where it needs to go, how to keep a safe distance, how to communicate its task to its immediate neighbors. This decentralized control lets them coordinate thousands of units at once.
And that scalability is the key. If you grow from 1,000 to 10,000 robots, you don't need a whole new system. You just add more agents following the same rules.
It scales almost infinitely.
So what are some of the future applications? Where is this going next?
Search and rescue is a major one. Instead of sending one person or one big, expensive drone into a collapsed building,
You send in a swarm.
a swarm of hundreds of tiny, cheap robots. They could spread out rapidly, map the space, find survivors with heat sensors, and collectively communicate the safest routes back to the human rescuers.
If one gets crushed, it doesn't matter.
The mission success rate barely changes. The system just absorbs the loss.
And this idea of efficient coverage extends to agriculture and even space.
In agriculture, you could have swarms of little drones monitoring crops plant by plant, detecting pests or disease, and applying tiny amounts of pesticide exactly where it's needed.
Reducing the overall chemical footprint.
Dramatically. And for planetary exploration, NASA is very interested. Why risk one massive, complex Mars rover when you could send a swarm of smaller rovers that could cover more area and even help each other if one gets stuck in the sand?
And this decentralized philosophy translates directly into pure algorithms too, starting with the original inspiration, Ant Colony Optimization, or ACO.
ACO algorithms are used to solve really difficult, discrete optimization problems, usually involving paths and ordering. We simulate virtual ants exploring a solution space, laying virtual pheromones on the most promising routes.
So just like the real ants, the virtual paths that get reinforced the most are the ones that converge on the best solution.
Exactly.
Give me a concrete example. Where is ACO actually being used?
Telecommunications network routing is a perfect one. A data packet traveling across the internet is treated like a virtual ant. If it gets to its destination quickly, it lays a digital pheromone on that route,
Making it more likely that the next packet will follow it.
And if a path is congested, the pheromone quickly fades. This lets the network adapt in real time to changing conditions, which is way better than traditional static routing tables. It's also used heavily in manufacturing scheduling and complex vehicle routing.
And then we have the other side of the coin, particle swarm optimization, or PSO. That's the one inspired by the flocks in schools.
Right. TSO is designed for continuous optimization problems, where you're trying to find the best set of real number parameters in a massive multi-dimensional search space.
So the particles are candidate solutions.
Floating in this space. And each particle's movement is determined by three forces that mirror the Boyd's rules. It remembers its own personal built position.
Cohesion and separation.
It's attracted to the neighborhood best position.
Alignment.
And it maintains its inertia, its momentum.
That's a fascinating balance between personal history and social influence. It stops them from all just rushing to the first good answer they find.
That's the brilliance of it. The social part drives rapid convergence on good areas, but the personal best part ensures diversity is maintained so the swarm doesn't get stuck on a suboptimal peak.
Which is why it's so good for training neural networks.
It's extremely effective for optimizing the hyperparameters, things like learning rates or network weights, which are critical for getting the best performance out of an AI model. It's also used in financial portfolio optimization and for managing power grids in real time. So we've covered the natural world, the engineering world. Now it's time to bring this all back home. How do these principles of emergence manifest in our own lives? Since we are, ourselves, part of massive human swarms.
I think traffic is the most immediate and, frankly, painful example. We all experience emergence in human systems every day.
Absolutely. No one plans a traffic jam. It emerges spontaneously from millions of individual local decisions about speed and spacing.
And what's really fascinating are those phantom traffic waves, the slowdowns that happen for no reason.
No accident, no construction. They're purely emergent. It's just from someone braking a little too hard, the person behind them overcompensating, and that tiny ripple cascades backwards, slowing down traffic for miles.
The human Boyd's rules going slightly wrong. But maybe the greatest emergent system of all is the market economy. Adam Smith's invisible hand is basically just swarm intelligence on a planetary scale.
It's the economic version of the ant colony. But money is the pheromone. Prices, supply, demand. They aren't dictated by a central authority. They emerge from millions of individual local transactions.
Everyone just following simple rules. Buy low, sell high.
The complexity and efficiency of a market economy are an emergent property of self-interested local action. It far surpasses what any central planner could design.
And even the shape of our cities reflects this, right? The road patterns where businesses cluster. It's all self-organized.
Completely. No single architect designs a massive city in its final form. It emerges from countless individual decisions constrained by geography and a few basic rules. A functioning city is a swarm output, just like the slime mold's real network.
And socially, we see it in trends and movements.
Social movements, viral media, they all have swarm dynamics. Coordination happens through local influence and cascading behavior. An idea spreads like a digital pheromone trail, reinforced by likes and shares.
But the swarm isn't always good. Those same rules can lead to very negative outcomes.
Nah.
We have to talk about the dark side of the swarm.
Yes. The same principles that create optimization can also create catastrophe. When positive feedback loops run wild, you get things like financial bubbles and crashes.
Herd mentality.
Everyone sees their neighbor making money. That's positive feedback. They align their behavior. They stay with the trend, regardless of the underlying value. The crash is the inevitable emergent correction.
And we see more immediate social dangers, like mob violence or the way our online discourse is fragmented.
Mob violence is the pathological side of alignment and cohesion. And online, those same rules create echo chambers. Misinformation spreads like a disease, amplified by algorithms that act as digital pheromones. If you're only exposed to people who agree with you, the cohesion rule reinforces bias and makes intellectual adaptation almost impossible.
This whole discussion just forces a reevaluation of what we even mean by intelligence and consciousness. If an organism without a brain can solve these problems, what does that say about us?
It implies that intelligence isn't necessarily a function of centralized hardware, but a property of complex, decentralized interaction, which leads to the concept of the superorganism.
The ant colony lives for decades, it maintains homeostasis, it reproduces, it has all the behaviors we associate with a single organism. The intelligence is a collective property.
And that leads to a very humbling thought about our own minds. The human brain is a massive swarm of about 86 billion neurons. No single neuron is conscious.
No single neuron knows what love or justice is.
And yet, our consciousness, our sense of self, is an emergent phenomenon arising from the collective, decentralized dynamics of all those non-conscious parts.
So intelligence is less about the complexity of the unit and more about the rules governing the interactions.
Precisely. And looking forward, this leads us to the idea of hybrid intelligence, consciously combining human and artificial swarms to solve problems we can't tackle alone.
This is already happening, right? Combining AI's pattern recognition with human contextual understanding.
Think about advanced medical diagnosis. The AI swarm processes massive data sets, finds statistical patterns a human would miss. Then the human doctor provides the contextual judgment, the ethical framework, and handles the unique cases. They work in a feedback loop.
But this raises huge questions about how we design the rules for these hybrid swarms to keep them aligned with our values.
That's the moral imperative. If the intelligence is distributed between humans and machines, who is accountable when an emergent outcome is harmful? We have to actively design rules to prevent unintended collective behaviors, like AI trading algorithms creating flash crashes faster than any human can stop them.
This has been a truly expansive deep dive. We've gone from the rules of a single ant to the behavior of global economies. Let's try to synthesize the core lessons here.
I think the most important takeaway is that swarm intelligence teaches us that complex problems do not always require complex centralized solutions.
Right.
The most powerful, robust, and adaptive systems, the ones that have survived for millions of years, are often the ones where simple, local interactions are favored over top-down hierarchy.
It's the power of distributed decision-making. By getting rid of the single point of failure, you create systems that can scale, adapt, and stay resilient even when things go wrong.
We should look at tough problems not as things one brilliant leader has to solve, but as opportunities for a collective solution, which we can achieve by designing better, simpler rules of interaction for the group.
The ants, the bees, the slime molds.
Yeah.
They've been doing this for millions of years. We don't need to impose all the answers from the top. We just need to design the environment and the local rules, the pheromone trails, the feedback loops that let that collective intelligence emerge from the bottom up. Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to chew on. If a brainless slime mold can spontaneously construct one of the world's most efficient rail networks, what seemingly intractable societal problem managing traffic, optimizing healthcare, improving communication in your own company, could be solved if you just restructured the rules of interaction for the human collective. Consider where in your own life you're trying to exert costly, brittle top-down control, when the optimal solution might just emerge if you could design better, simpler rules for local interaction, and then just let go of the need to micromanage the outcome.